This morning, our reading is taken from the Gospel according to Matthew, but I'm also going to add a little bit from the Gospel according to John to kind of complement our initial reading, and I think you'll see why when I share my reflection with you. But we begin with the Gospel according to Matthew. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. He said, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. And now let us turn to the Gospel according to John. These events happen a little bit later on that 3rd day. Mary stood weeping, that is Mary Magdalene, stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, for now the stone had been rolled away, and she saw 2 angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and your God." How is love expressed? How do we see signs or symptoms of love, that movement that comes from the human heart? We often consider things like a warm embrace or the sacrifice of oneself in charitable acts for another. We often see love expressed through kind words, and indeed a keen sense of compassion and companionship. Those are all very, very clear expressions of love, and I'm sure you have seen those, I'm sure you have felt those, received those, and I am sure that you yourselves have found that experience welling from deep within your heart, this wellspring that cannot be contained, but moves toward one whom you address as your beloved. Indeed, that is all true. But I would like to share with you what I see as perhaps the most sublime, the most powerful expression of love, and that is yearning. Yearning for someone. Once I was in a grocery store, and a mother and a child had been separated. It's very, very easy. This is a very simple thing, and it happens very easily, because if you have little kids, they are quick to explore, and a grocery store with all of its aisles makes for a very challenging setting to keep track of a very busy child. Well, the child perhaps had gone exploring and was now in a different aisle than his mom, and the mom was calling the child, and the child was looking for his mom, and I saw this, and they were quickly reunited. But in that moment, you could clearly see the mother's yearning for her child. The mother's yearning to find and to be reunited with her child. And I noticed this, and it struck me as so deeply powerful, that the yearning for that one in your life who is significant, that yearning for that person who is not present, that yearning for that person with whom you long to be reunited, that this is a powerful, powerful expression of love. Keep that in mind, for we have seen this in our story revealed in Mary Magdalene. But let's step back for a moment. Sometimes I feel that the tomb itself does not get the attention that it deserves on Easter Sunday. Sometimes we move simply to the appearance of Jesus raised from the dead. But what about the tomb itself? What about that place in which the body of Jesus has been laid? I would suggest to you this morning that the tomb itself is that hinge, that centerpiece between death and between life. The tomb, in a very real way, represents the power of the state versus the power of God. You see those people, they come to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, and they say to him, "We're very concerned about the body of Jesus, because you see," and they call him an impostor. "You see that this impostor, he said he was going to rise again on the third day. Well, we need to make sure that his body is contained, because they say that it would be worse if his disciples came and snatched away his body and then said, 'Wow, look, he has risen from the dead.'" So Pilate listens and he agrees. The body of Jesus is put into this tomb. I imagine it looks like some kind of cave. But then, to make sure that Jesus' body remains in there, the stone is rolled in front of it. The tomb is that place between death and between life. The stone itself that is rolled in front of the tomb represents the power of the state to squelch life, the power of the Roman Empire to dispose of this one whom they saw as a terrible rabble-rouser, as a terrible troublemaker, this one who countered the prevailing teachings of the religious authorities. And so he was put to death, as you know. His body was put in the tomb, but the state under Pontius Pilate seals the tomb with a rock. And now the power of the state is countered by the power of God, who is going to bring forth life from death. And how do we see that moment in which the power of God is first revealed? We come back to the tomb. Pilate said, "Put a stone in front of the tomb." But the good Lord above moves the stone, rolls the stone away. Somehow it's no longer there. It's off to the side. And now the tomb can be entered. And now the tomb can be examined. Amazingly, the tomb is empty. The power of the state is overcome by the power of God. The power of death is swallowed up by the power of life itself. And so the Apostle Paul can write much later, "Death, where is thy sting?" And it is in this moment, this hinge, if you will, between cross and resurrection, that Mary Magdalene appears on the scene. Mary goes into the tomb. She sees the place where Jesus had been laid, but he's no longer there. But instead she sees these mysterious figures in white, these angels from heaven. And they tell her the one you're looking for isn't here. But at first, Mary is panicked. And here is that sublime expression of love. Mary is panicked because she doesn't know what's happened. She is yearning for Jesus. She is yearning for this one who called her unto himself. This is the great and sublime expression of love. Mary's yearning. Where is his body? Where have you laid him? She wants to come and give to Jesus a proper, a respectful burial. She wasn't even expecting Jesus to be alive at this point, but she was yearning for him, and that yearning was compelling her to move frantically, like the mother in the store looking for her child. Mary was moving frantically, questioning these figures in white. Where is he? What have you done with him? And then she sees Jesus himself, but she thinks that he is a gardener. And once again, that deep yearning from her heart, a heart that is broken at this moment, questions the gardener. She does not recognize Jesus, but rather she is seeking him with every fiber of her being. And it is when Jesus turns to her and calls her by name and says, Mary, immediately it's as if the scales fall from her eyes, and she simply responds without a second thought, Rabbi. And they are reunited. And together they are standing there. The Jesus whom she sought, the body that she sought to bury respectfully, is no longer an inanimate corpse, but rather Jesus is alive. But this morning on this Easter Sunday, I really would like to focus in my thoughts and for you on that moment when the tomb is empty and when Mary arrives and when she is seeking. Many times in our spiritual lives, we feel as though I can't find God. I don't know where God is. And we question ourselves, and we doubt ourselves, and sometimes we even consider ourselves lost because we have not found God. That's not the end of the story, and that's not a problem of the human heart. Because it is the yearning for God. That is what is at the crux of the matter. Finding God, that is a wonderful experience. And sometimes we encounter God, sometimes we experience the presence of God, but there are many times that we don't. And there are many times in which we have failed on our journey to God, that our spiritual lives are empty, that we are in a desert, and that we are utterly and wholly lost. But we're searching, and we're yearning, we're looking for God. That is what we see with Mary Magdalene here. She hasn't found him. She doesn't think she will ever find him. But she's yearning for him. She is longing for this Jesus who embraced her. And I would suggest to you that that is at the core of the spiritual life. It is the yearning. It is the seeking. It is that movement of the heart in which we feel an absence, but to which we are directed for that hoped-for experience of presence, of fullness, and of wholeness. And so we stand so often in our lives before an empty tomb. So often in our lives we are peering into that empty tomb, and we are saying, like Mary, "Where is he gone? Where is my God? I cannot find him. I cannot see him. I cannot meet him." We stand at that empty tomb, at that entrance. We peer inside, but we wonder. And then perhaps we think that we have failed. It's hardly the case. It's hardly the case. Standing at the empty tomb to find so much of our lives. Standing at the empty tomb and yearning and searching and reaching out. That is a manifestation of a heart that feels love, and that a manifestation of a heart that is in love. So be heartened, be encouraged, and you can remember as you yearn and as you seek that the power of Pontius Pilate could not overwhelm the one for whom we are yearning. That in this setting, the power of the Roman Empire, the power of that state, was overcome by the power of God. And so the tomb is there. We can look, we can yearn, and we can seek. And when we do, then we can know that indeed our spiritual lives are alive and well, just like the mom in the grocery store who was yearning for her child. That was a sign of deep love. A restless heart, a yearning heart, is similarly a sign of deep love. And that's what the spiritual life is all about. And that's what we can proclaim on Easter Sunday. This good news, that the stone is gone. That this pivotal point between Good Friday and Easter, that there is a transformation. And now we can rush and we can say, like Mary, "Where is he? I'm looking for you. I'm yearning for you." That heart of Mary can truly be, and often is, the very heart that is beating within our own chests. Amen.